undoubtedly the greatest one of all of these. I hate to tell you that and ruin the rest of the year, but this is going to be the greatest one. Mr. Mink loves this one. It first starts out with natural disasters and resources. Now, the natural disasters, the two ones that they're going to talk about on inside are basically hurricanes and tornadoes, okay? With this, it talks about the hurricanes that is one of the problems that we have here with our state. Now, out in the Midwest, is one of your questions that was in the reading. They don't have that natural disaster of hurricanes out there. If Hurricane Sally goes out in towards Oklahoma, by the time it gets to Oklahoma, it's nothing but a rainstorm, a low pressure system at the greatest, which means that it's just a bunch of rain. Barely some wind, not what it is right now, okay? Resources that our state has. Two of them that it's going to talk about are the land and the water. We have water all around the state, which you sit there and think about it, well, it's all salt water around the state. Yes, but it's beaches, okay? And people now use beaches as a resource. But there's water underneath. And the water underneath is in what's called the aquifer. Now, the swamps that we have around, over on the other side of Tampa, there's a swamp. There's swamps down where the Everglades are and everything else. The water that's there goes down underneath. It soaks in through the ground. It goes through the ground and it keeps going down, down, down. The last layer, it goes through the dirt, the mud, sand, clay, and then what is known as limestone rock. Limestone rock is porous. It will allow it through. The water will go through the rock, come out. All the impurities are out of it. Okay? In here, I'm looking around. Does anybody have a Zephyr Hills bottle? Nope. Nobody's got a Zephyr Hills bottle. But if you had a Zephyr Hills bottle, where does Zephyr Hills water come from?
Zephyr Hills swamp or spring?
Spring. There's a spring over in Zephyr Hills, and that's where it comes from. If you ever go to Ocala, it talks about Ocala in here. If you ever go to Ocala, there is a spring up there. And if you tour the Silver Springs that's there, they will show you where they used to take the spring water out, bottle it up, send it out. Had Silver Springs on it. One of the kids in the other class had Niagara on it. That comes from Niagara Springs, okay? It's spring water. Hurricane hunters. Right now there are two of them, and one is going out to see Sally, the other is going out to see Paulette, and that's why if you watch when I showed you on the weather thing, that there was nothing coming from, who was it, Terry and Vivian, that are out, Teddy.
And Vicky.
Teddy and Vicky that are out in the middle of the Atlantic on the other side, because it's going to be a while before they get to somewhere over here. Right now, Paulette is just above Bermuda, and Sally is just about to hit into sometime tonight, tomorrow morning, into Mississippi, Louisiana, somewhere along in there. So these are planes that fly out. They get all sorts of different readings. They find out exactly where the eye is. They send coordinates back, and so they sit and plot where the eye is, and it sort of goes connect the dots and figuring out what path it's taking. Okay? And it's there to allow help for the people that it's heading towards. Yes?
Are like spaghetti plots made by hurricane hunters?
They aren't made by them, but they will get some of the data that they input, like the barometric pressure, the wind speed, and how fast it's moving, and they will give that to each one of those computers, to where the computer will then spit out the model and show the spaghetti plots. And we saw the one with Sally. It has it going up, and then it sort of has like a bad hair day. And if you look at Paulette, it's like streamlined to where all of them are heading in the right direction.
Okay,
So they all come out with different ones.
So hurricane hunters help?
They help, yes. And they let the people know, hey, you better watch out. This thing is intensifying. Because right now they can go, it's not that far for the plane to travel, so they don't need, a ton of fuel, or they can travel around and stay up there for a longer period of time because they don't have far to go back to a base. Whereas right now, if it were to go out to Teddy, it would make it out there, it would do its zigzags, and then it would have to come back because it's got such a long trip to get back here. Okay? But right now, it's just off the coast up there. They can go out and go all through it, do all sorts of readings, and let people know ahead, hey, this is increasing, it's getting even worse. Because I think it's up to, little do you know, because I found out over there that it became a hurricane. It was 65-mile-an-hour winds here. It's now got 85. So they're gonna be monitoring it, because if it goes up any higher, it's gonna go to Category 2. Okay? Now, natural hazards, that's where it talks about the tornadoes. Tornadoes come about real quick. We don't really know about them until the day before, possibly. There might be warning or watches put out. Watches meaning that nothing's been sighted, but they may be able to, it may happen because the conditions are right. But they don't happen very often, or they do happen very often. But there's more of those than there are hurricanes. They last anywhere from a few seconds to minutes. It says in here that they go longer, but most of them are just short-lived. They're not very long. Hurricanes, those are tracked and they're followed a lot longer. You have to watch out for the storm surge. That's the worst part of the hurricanes. That's when it's coming on land. Right now, the way the winds go around it, on the right side of the eye, the east side, all those towns have water being pushed up there because the winds are going that way around. And so they're gonna have storm surge going up in there, which causes flooding and everything else. Then we talked about natural resources. We talked about the water that's around here. We also talked a little bit about the land, okay? Our land is flat, which is great for farming, okay? If you go up into the mountains, it's hard to farm on a mountainside, because if it rains, it's gonna wash out that whole side of the mountain. And so the only places that they have farming up north is down in the valleys or in the plains. Out in the Midwest, that's where corn and everything else is grown. And that's where they have it out there because it's more flat, okay? Here, Florida's flat. We grow a lot of sugar cane down around Miami. Tomatoes are grown here a lot because we have warm temperature pretty much year round. Southern Florida, south of here, is great for doing all that because we may get freezes here every once in a while. Last year we didn't. But on down further south, they get even less. The closer you get to the equator, the warmer it stays year round. And so they don't have that. So these tomatoes can grow. Citrus, they can't go in frozen times that's more than 4 to 6 hours, because if they are in frozen conditions, a deep freeze, for longer than that, it will kill the plants. And so that's why they're grown here in Florida. They're also grown out in California, in the valleys out there. Mexico, South America, the northern part of South America has a lot of citrus also, because it's closer to the equator, and that's where those plants grow. If you were to plant a plant up in an orange tree up in Ohio, it's gonna die, because it stays frozen up there for days, and that's gonna kill it. It's just not meant for it. Yes?
My grandparents, they live in Ohio and Tennessee, and it's just like cornfield after cornfield after cornfield.
Mhm.
Like,
In certain areas there, it's like that, but if you go over towards the Smoky Mountains, the Appalachian Mountains, it's less, because you got the mountains, and you can't farm on the mountains. West Virginia is a lot of mountains, and so you can't farm there. But you go out to Nebraska, the University of Nebraska, their mascot is a corn husker. They husk corn, and the reason that is because they grow the corn out there, okay? Moving on, we talked about Henry Flagler. He lived 83 years. Online, you had to look up in the green thing to find out it was from 1830 to 1913. You had to do a little subtraction to figure it out. He brought in railroads. He was the one that started railroads coming down. And him and another guy ended up making railroads that came down the east coast of Florida. And at that time, there was nothing over there, because people thought beaches was a waste of land because you couldn't farm on a beach. You can't farm in the sand. And that's how they thought about that land. And so Flagler was one that came down, vacationed in Jacksonville, loved it, thought it was great having the salt water, the beach, and just getting away from everything. He ended up building a hotel in Flagler over where St. Augustine. And it's now part of Flagler College. And if you go to their cafeteria, that is the old Flagler Hotel.
oh, I went there this summer.
Okay? That's the Flagler Hotel. And that was one that he built. And if you go on down the East Coast, there's other hotels that he built. And what his idea was I get people on the railroad, bring them down, they have nowhere to go. But if I build a hotel, then they stay at my hotel. I not only get their train fare, make them pay for a train ticket to come down, but then I have them staying at one of my hotels. So I can make money off of them there. And he had all sorts of hotels all the way down. Henry Plant was another one that they don't talk about in here, but he brought a railroad across from St. Augustine, brought it over here, and built the Bellevue Biltmore Hotel. And if you go to the University of Tampa in Tampa, that campus has on it the Plant Hotel, which is there. And that is part of their campus. So that's where the Plant Hotel was. He built a hotel there in Tampa, and he built the Bellevue Biltmore Hotel that was over here. And it was destination. You got on the train, you came across, he got money for the train tickets, then he got money for them staying at his hotel. Okay? And that's the way they did those things. I'll come back to you. The barometer on these storms. I've been telling you to watch the barometer pressure, and the last time when I looked over there with the other class, Sally was at 975 millibars, and that's what they measured in, is millibars. And Paulette, which is a Category 2 hurricane, out in the Atlantic, just went over Bermuda, that was 960. The lower it goes, the stronger the storm, okay? And so they're finding out there that the lower that barometer goes, the stronger it's getting. Hurricane Hunter planes, they're measuring that barometer, because if it keeps going down, that means that storm is getting stronger, okay? but that's one of the pressure, that measures the pressure of the air out there. In other words, if you go swimming in a pool, okay, and you go to the very, very deep end, and you dive all the way to the bottom, you go down, get a coin, get a rock, get a toy that's down there. You get down to the bottom down there, and you feel your ear pressure. You can feel the pressure on your ears. Okay? What that is, that's all the water that's above you. So if it's a 10-foot deep pool and you're down at the very 10 feet, you're laying on the bottom down there, you got 10 feet of water pressure above you pressing on you, and that's why you feel that pressure in your ears. Okay? You go outside, that's what they're measuring, except it's not water coming that's above you, it's all the air that's above you. You're used to it here, and so your body is equipped to take it. But there is times when people they'll get headaches. My daughter gets headaches when the air pressure varies or changes, and that's one of the things. The last thing we're going to talk about is Max Mayfield. He was the leader of the National Hurricane Center, and what Max Mayfield did was, when he was there, one of his accomplishments was in 2005, Hurricane Katrina came through and it hit down around the Keys in Florida, and then it went out into the Gulf of Mexico. When it was out there, the Hurricane Hunter planes were going and checking on it. And when they checked on it, they were finding out where that barometric pressure was dropping. And he called the mayor of New Orleans and said, "You've got to get people out of there. It's got to be evacuated. This is going to be a deadly storm." And the mayor went ahead and he evacuated people. It probably saved thousands of lives, because if they didn't, New Orleans is a city that is built below sea level. And so if he didn't get them out of there, New Orleans, flooded as it was, there would have been more deaths than what came from it. So he saved lives. This is what these meteorologists are out there doing. That's why the Hurricane Hunter planes are out there searching for all this information. That's why right now, with 4 storms out there, 4 named storms, that we are paying attention, watching, listening. Okay, this weekend we had a little wind, a lot of rain, but we had it moving away from us, and it wasn't really developed. Sally wasn't. But now, if you're in New Orleans, if you're in Mobile, Alabama, Biloxi, Mississippi, they're all right there along the coast. If you watch the weather tonight, that's what's going to happen. They're going to show that. Things that will be on the news for you to watch: the fires out in California. Okay, they're showing those because those are deadly and they're tearing up everything out there. But then they're also going to talk about preparations for Sally coming in. And I don't know if they'll do this or not, but maybe on the world news, they may tell about Bermuda, because the eye of that hurricane of Paulette went right over the island of Bermuda, to where it was, the eye overtook the whole thing, and you could see the whole island of Bermuda through the eye. So there was probably some damage that happened there, and when you're on an island, there's nowhere for you to go. There's nowhere. Here, you can drive to inland, you can drive north, you can get out of here, but there, if you didn't get on a boat or a plane to get out, you gotta just hunker down, okay? But this is one of my favorites because of all the hurricanes, the natural disasters, but also remember that there are resources in there also. Okay, it's not just disasters and treacherous. Okay, so